power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. Look,
Yeah. Halloween just passed. Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year. Christmas is awesome. You get gifts, right? You give gifts. There's always family. There's always ridiculous food. My youth, there was snow. There was grandma's present that you got to open the night before, which was always a new pair of PJs. And from my memories, grandma died in 1981, 83, whatever, 82. And so my PJs were child PJs, and for multiple years they were the Dr. Denton's, where you had the feet in the PJ. Dude, and when I was a kid then, I'd always get sweaty. They had the plastic feet on them. You'd slip on the linoleum floor in the kitchen or the bathroom, wipe out, smack your head, because you were running in the, like, you know, jumpsuit PJs with the zippers up everywhere, and they were that synthetic, you know, puffy fiber-ish. They weren't like flannel, or they weren't like, you know, they weren't wool, but they were a little scratchy and sort of cheap. Maybe red, or maybe they had a theme on them. And that was awesome. And every year you knew you got to open up the PJs and wear those to bed that night so that the next morning you could open the presents that Santa brought. And those were awesome times. And Christmas is good, but Halloween, oh, getting scared, being afraid. We lose the belief of Santa and some of that magic component. We can see that in our children and in our youth that believe that. And we can see that translated in movies and in books and stories. And you can experience some of it, which is nice. It's sort of there in the holiday spirit and decorations and elves and Santa and song and, you know, wassailing and caroling and blah, blah. And it's become the biggest holiday in history. I mean, before Halloween, there were projections for Black Friday and then for Christmas crap. And now, like, I think maybe days ago, I don't know, maybe on the 10th, the 11th of November, Christmas stuff started out, and they're talking about movies, and they're talking about the Grinch, and I understand marketing and business plans and money and profits, but it's, you know, like everything else in this country, as we've become what we are, it's a bit of a perversion, you know, for that underlying component, that dollar, the almighty dollar for profits. Oh well, Halloween is my favorite holiday. I've always loved that. And for some reason with Halloween, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, that fear, the ability for fear disappears. And even nowadays with these crazy jacked up Halloween horror nights and houses and the theme parks that build the houses and all these people that travel around, you know, like they used to do for the Renaissance days. So, a cup of mead for you. Would you like to throw axes? And then, you know, and they were awesome. You'd have like a pair of dudes that sat in the corner and they were like the jesters. They'd do the raunchy comedy, right? Phenomenal. And at the good Renaissance parks, you'd have people that dressed up in the armor and had swords, and then the craftsmen and the artisans that sold their jewelry, or and those are pretty cool. But then it's spread to these like Halloween horror nights or anything. And you've got folks that go, you know, full tilt. They dress up in the crazy costumes. They probably make decent money. There's big organizations that drive these things. They're open for extended periods, not just around Halloween in the major cities, you know, where you can draw the people. And they're pretty awesome and scary. And the horror movies, you know, accentuate that. You know, Hostel and Saw and all those. You know, any Rob Zombie junk. So that's pretty cool. But I've always just liked the raw scare. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, with computer technique and all that, a lot is possible. A lot more is possible. You can show the real gore. You can show, the fantastic. And yet, there's, dependent upon the genre of the horror or the genre of the scare, and, I don't recall because I was too small, but The Exorcist rocked the world. And there's not a lot of special effect in that. Her head spins or whatever. You spell green slime.
The power of Christ compels you.
Max von Sydow. Weren't we just talking about him in Strange Brew? He tried to take over the world with the tainted beard. Then he'd play the organ, and everybody'd go violent. Fabulous good guy, bad guy. And that movie was epic. And that's it. I mean, you can have opinions for or against it, and it's blasphemous, but man, if you don't watch that for the first time, and it's harder nowadays because it's 30 years old, whatever, 50 years old, 71 to now, 40 years old. If you don't watch that and it doesn't make the hair on your neck stand up, and you're not, like, whoa. And that's not the horror scare shit. That's like, the eternal damnation scare shit, and the wrath of Christ, and the onslaught of evil, which carries an equal scare to it, sometimes worse. And it doesn't matter if you're religious or faithful or biblical or whatever. I mean, there's shit afoot unless you're completely disconnected. And that Sissy Spacek, or no, that wasn't her. That was she was in The Shining. That whatever her name was, she was young in that too. She destroyed that role. I mean, everybody in that film blew up to be huge. Even the Italian priest, I can't remember his name, but he was pretty big back in the 70s. And I loved that. And I continue to love that. And to me, that's real scare. John Carpenter, man. Like the first Halloween. There was gore, but there wasn't gore. I mean, Michael Myers sticks stuff through people and kills them. But it's that anticipation and that fear and that monster off frame, or that shit under the bed or in the closet, or the thing that you can't kill, or the thing that you can't define. Pure evil. That's fear, root, deep-seated, bottom of the soul fear. And not many directors can pull that off. Carpenter was a fiend. How many did he have like that? And he sort of twisted it a little, or, tweaked it, and then he had, I guess, Escape from New York. Snake Plissken, dude. Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell's been a monster for decades. I just saw him the other day, because he's 100, much older than me, but looks like me, and he's got this giant, or he had, because he's been doing these films, the huge, like, Western mustache that turns into the chops, and you're like, and the long hair, and he looks like Doc Holliday or Buffalo Bill or something. Epic. Yeah, he's been awesome. He did the Marine, the Space Marine, Tommy, and he got big as a house and beat the freaking genetically modified, soldiers. Oh, he's played some great roles. But I digress. Yeah. So Max von, remember when they were in there in the bed?
The power of Christ compels you.
They throw the holy water. And she burned. Ooh. Dude. I mean, the basic technique. I don't know what the hell they did. They put the whole set in a freezer so you can see their breath. And, the room cracks and the bed floats. And she's jacked. Whew. That movie was awesome. And The Fog, the original Fog, with Adrian Barbeau, John Carpenter, Halloween. God, Halloween 1 through 98. With the new one that came out, well, weird. If you didn't see it, we saw it. I was jazzed, and it was okay. There was still some element of it, because nothing that happened from Halloween 1 to present was considered in this thing. It's weird if you don't get a little backstory. And you got to investigate it, because Jamie Lee Curtis is back, and Michael Myers, after the murders, is incarcerated and put in the loony bin. And he breaks out, and she's been waiting for him. And none of the other craps happen. Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, H2O, is it 20? I remember 8 more days till Halloween, and the masks, and you turned in, and the snakes came out, and it was, those were a little strange. The Lucky Clover, or whatever the crazy masks were that killed you, none of those occurred. It was a pretty good one. It was okay. It wasn't the greatest. Curtis was a badass. Some kind of, renegade trained, waiting for Michael Myers, breaking out, survival freak. Different. But that original one, and I'll tell you what, you pit that against the movies of the time, like Freddy Krueger, right? Nightmare on Elm Street, or Jason Voorhees. Voorhees was close, right? You had the lake, and it had some creepy shit to it. Freddy, and Bob Englund or whatever, and the burning of the face and the bad special effects, and his arm was stretched out. He had that, and he's, the bad Wolverine, pre-Wolverine, scratchy fingers. I mean, I got it, and nightmares are nightmares. We all sleep. That was the foundation of that. Everybody got to sleep, man, and we all dream. And nightmares are nightmares. And sometimes you wake up and those mo's are real. I don't remember my dreams, but a lot of people do. So I think that struck a chord. But those original films, and some of the film, even the black and whites, like Hitchcock, I watched him growing up. He was epic. Black and white or the Twilight Zones. Rod Serling, come on. And that guy even had political platform. The Monsters on Main Street, and some of the stuff that was like, listen, shit we're doing nowadays, and the communist threats here, and starting to eradicate writers and free speech. Go figure. Joe McCarthy, you're a communist. You know what you are? You're a conservative. You ain't liberal. You don't care about the peoples. These powerful trends that come back up cyclically over history. Read a book. God, maybe you'll learn something. Freaking humans were repetitive in nature. Here we go again. Putin's shouting nationalism. The Chinese are blowing up nationalistically. Trump's gonna, dude. Though I read that Putin and Trump had a good talk in Paris, and Macron's over there yelling nationalism. Is this 1930? Oui, oui. Qu'est-ce que c'est? And it feels like it a little bit. I hope we find some civility. Don't edge toward war. But yeah, Halloween's always my favorite holiday, and it was awesome, and that movie was awesome. And the stairs down there, they're in D.C., if you didn't know that, Washington, D.C. And they're near the Potomac, over near Georgetown. They're right above Georgetown, and they're near the water. And you can see the stairway, and it's pretty epic. I mean, with the giant brown rock that goes up. And it's just near Watergate, near the Kennedy Center, down around on the, if you're looking at DC, and I don't know the direction, but it feels like it's the west side, right near Potomac, but it probably isn't. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I think that was right near where Reagan got shot by Cuckoo. And they're going to make those a national monument because the scope of that freaking movie. one of the greatest in history. The Exorcist. Whoa! So that's cool. And I love that. DC's awesome. Man. You keep going up and you run into Madam's Organ and Adams Morgan. Which I think it is the west side of DC. And if you've never been there, it's got all the alphabet named streets. And as you're moving up to like DuPont Circle and then Adams Morgan, it's all on the western side. And it's really cool because it turns into like rural-ish, not rural, but trees and grass and greenery outside of the city. And there's a lot of grass and greenery in DC, the mall, all of it. It's got a really cool vibe. They did it well. Other than the city proper, which is this grid, this crossing grid of just concrete, steel, and government. But yeah, DuPont Circle, that back in the day, man, that was the Castro district of DC. Right? And Adams Morgan's nearby, which they had Madam's Organ, and they'd play bluegrass and stuff. They'd have the transvestite cross-dress night. They'd do all kinds of crazy stuff there. And no, I did not partake in any of the events there. I didn't even go to the bluegrass nights that they had. You could bring your banjo or your ukulele, and I'm sure they did, you know, the dueling banjos. Maybe even with a little bit of the Deliverance somewhere mixed in there. After hours in the back, I don't know. But I was working downtown on, I don't know, M Street, N Street, I don't know, maybe even closer, like K Street. Closer, I mean, to like the mall and the Capitol and all the government buildings. Because they're right down there on, you know, whatever. D, E, F, G, H, I mean, they're all the early alpha streets. Yeah, we had a FedEx dude. Pretty sure he was FedEx. It's weird how you associate with that. Because he had the colored uniform, right? You had brown and FedEx, which had all the freaking colors. Blue and the red little piping and blah. And this dude would come and deliver the packages. And he was a big man. He was a fine specimen of an individual, black dude. And he had the big braids. This was in the 90s. You know, big old braids that he put into the, you know, band around there. And I saw him many times. But I worked, you know, I was sitting at my desk doing whatever. The accounting or the books or whatever. Because I think I did that back then, one of my first runs around. And for one reason or another, I signed for the packages that day because he'd bring the hand cart, or we got a lot at the office there. And he handed me the thing to sign or whatever. And this dude, he had nails. They were manicured. They had to be press-ons. I didn't ask him. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they were his own. And I was like, damn, my man. And he's like, oh, yeah. He goes, that's just the tip of the iceberg, baby. Got to come and see the rest of the outfit at Madam's Organ Friday night. I was like, ooh, what? Yeah, they do a weekly show, maybe monthly, you know. Everybody go down there like RuPaul and dress up and just walk their junk off. And that, it wasn't irregular, but it wasn't common back then. And you still had people getting killed for being gay or lesbian or whatever. And they were ostracized. DC was a little more liberal. All the big cities were, right? Like Georgetown and that. Georgetown. Or, you know, Beverly Hills type. It's that same layout. All these boutiques and little stores and restaurants, and it's ritzy and clean, busy and bustling, and eclectic and artsy and expensive. Georgetown, right along the Potomac, the water there. Or Boulder, right, in Colorado out in the Midwest. Or Beverly Hills, a little more shoppy and snooty, you know, $1,000 shirt, $10 billion whatever. You know, my Supreme headband, $2,000. But all the same, you had those little sections in all the major cities where it was cool. Those areas are cool, and it's nice to go to them. I mean, it's not me. You know, I never went and shopped and spent money and did that stuff, but cool areas, a lot of different people. Down there, you had Georgetown right in the middle of it, Georgetown University. And it was awesome. Spending a little bit of time there walking around. DC's a good town. But yeah, this dude would dress up and go down to Adams Morgan and do his thing every Friday night. And I mean full blown, right? And he was a big man. He had big old hands and stuff. And I don't know, maybe I imagine it, but I think I recall someone at the office said, "Oh yeah, you got to see him dressed up. He's a beautiful woman, beautiful woman." And I was like, "Oh, okay," which I think that's why he had the hair and stuff. Not my thing, but awesome. And look where we are now. Those cats didn't stop. We were down in Miami 2 years ago or something. I don't know. We've made a number of day trips down there, all four of us. Tracy and I and the boys, and we left the doggy here, and we were walking Ocean Drive, and one of the bars down there, right on the beach, South Beach, they were filming some shit, and I think it was one individual who was a well-known Brazilian transvestite was walking the walk. They had media, full-blown television cameras. They had crowds cheering this person with their giant wig and the crazy eyeshadow and like this train and drape thing that was like for a mile, and music. And it was like I think a school day off or something, like a Tuesday. And I was like, holy moly, what's going on? Any day of the week down in Miami. Yeah. So, catches you off guard a little bit, but whatever, that's cool. To each his own. Yeah, and DC was awesome. And Halloween's awesome. And the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. Scary. And I love being scared. And for some weird reason, when you're young, you lose that. You know, most of us. You realize, whatever. The dark. Or what you don't know. And that crazy imagination. Boogeyman under my bed. I remember being about 12, 13. Because I was born in 69 and my grandmother died in 81. And dude, for a number of nights I couldn't sleep. Bed was right here. You walked in the door to my bedroom right here. It was a rectangular room. I was against the far wall. There was a window here. There were windows here, and the closet right here. And the closet door wouldn't close all the way because I had shit all over in my fucking room. It was a nightmare. I was not a clean child. God, shame on me. And I remember a number of nights seeing Grandma's face in the closet. Dude, I didn't sleep. Those weren't good nights. The wife, she died on Easter Day in our downstairs bathroom. In her 80s, came over for Easter dinner. She, DC, my aunt, her daughter, my mother's sister, our family. We always celebrated together. We were close, even when the rest of all the aunts and uncles sort of split up. Uncle Ned went up to Cheektowaga. Aunt Mary Jane went out to Niagara on the Lake. Aunt Nancy went out to Love Canal. Ooh, that wasn't a good choice. Dude, Love Canal. Five-eyed fish. And yeah, he had a lot of birth defects and a lot of illness. That was the start of bad stuff out there. Tonawanda, Lackawanna, whatever. Oof, dumping in that poor canal and all those people. Toxic waste. But they came over for Easter dinner. We had dinner. Grandma went into the bathroom after dessert. Didn't come out. They stuck us downstairs. We had a little black and white TV with the channel and the tuner. Trying to get the 3 channels she could. Love, exciting and new. Love Boat. And then Fantasy Island. They playing, boss, they playing.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
Hervé Villachez and Ricardo Montalban. Ricardo Montalban was the shit. He was on Space Seed. He had like a chest like Arnold, where he said, and he was like the superhuman leader of the superhuman bred race of people that were supposed to take over the world. And they tried to. They were supposed to be the next generation of world leaders, but they went the other way. So we put them in some stasis and launched them off to Earth. And sure enough, Captain James T. Kirk and the USS Enterprise finds them. Right? But Montalban, that dude was svelte and smooth. Whew. He had the ponytail. That ponytail. Ponies, never really. More the man bun or the top knot. The man buns are everywhere now. With the Metro pants, you can even be flabby, and you wear your Metro pants. They're real tight fitting, right? The straight pants and your button-down collared, pastel shirt, and maybe you don't shave. You got the 5 o'clock show. Man bun. That's still in style, or back in style, or whatever style. Montalban had the ponytail though, and the long hair. Whew, badass. But yeah, that TV was downstairs. You'd watch that, watch all the stuff. Gilligan's Island. Said, right back in your lyric tail. And we were down there watching it. Didn't even know Grandma died, which was strange. And that's how kids are, right? Because I was 12 or 13. We were running around raising Cain. We had, we'd jump on the couch down there. We'd hang on shit. I told you earlier, my dad electrocuted himself out next to the chin-up bar. We had mats. We'd put shit on the floor, jump on. I mean, we were kids. We destroyed that basement. And you could hear from the upstairs bathroom through the radiator, which was right above in the basement, the furnace. The upstairs bathroom was right above it. And you could hear, and it was pretty thin, whatever the flooring was. And I talked to my brother or whomever in there. And I didn't hear any of the chaos. And then they came downstairs, and Grandma's dead. We called the ambulance, and they took her to the hospital, and she's gone. Died right in the house. And that was sort of weird. Yeah. But I saw her face in the closet, and that was scary. But somewhere thereafter, you forget it, and the scares are gone. But I've always loved that feeling of being afraid. When the hair on your arm is the back of your neck. And for some reason, I can sort of psych myself into, all right, maybe it's scary. Which is fun. I don't recall ever being really scared anymore as an adult, but even going to, Mount Hope Cemetery in Rochester in upstate New York, where you had tombstones, one of the oldest in the country, right? Back to the 1700s, early 1800s. And the fog rolls in, and it's cold, and the wind's blowing, and there ain't a lot of light, and it's rolling hills, so your view's obstructed, and the graves are strewn everywhere, and imagination can sort of take over, and that's fun. But yeah, that's my favorite holiday. Love Halloween, and we just rolled through it, and we didn't do anything this year. Took the kids out, sorta-ish. Trev dropped him off. Jeffrey. What should I wear for my costume? It's almost 18. It's got the big T-Rex. Put a giant hole in it. Gotta patch that up or it won't stay inflated. Come on, dude. Maybe I'll go trick-or-treating. Just eat some candy out of the bag, dude. So, yeah, that's where we sit now. What are other general topics of the day? Man, did I go on there? Still having some voting chaos down here in Florida with a number of the elections, 2 big ones, being recounted due in a day or something. Due soon here if they need to validate it. Who knows? Rick Scott's suing. He's got 3 or 4 lawsuits against the voting commission. Susan Booker and then the Broward County broad. And shades of, the hanging Chad. We'll see how it turns out. I hope we follow protocol. I hope we come to some kind of finding that's somewhat definitive. We don't have these huge, even greater divided political lines, which I'm sure we will. Liar, cheater, and then it's weird, man. I talked about this during, voting day. There's 6, 7, 800,000 votes you gotta count in this period. You sort of know that. You sort of have an idea of the percentage that are mail-in, absentee votes. I'll tell you what, I'm being transparent. You have to sign the outside of the envelope that you seal your absentee ballot in identically to the way your license is signed. The signature. If I signed it DGD, if I signed it Dave D. Wysocki, Dave D. If I signed it David G, Dave G, whatever, it's got to be identical. Yeah, I heard that a day after voting or something, and I read it, I think, on it. I don't know if I pulled my license out and looked at it, and I think, and I'm just saying, I think I wrote David George D. Wysocki in pretty clear script as my signature, which I rarely do. I usually, like everybody else does, because you're ripping through signatures. And I looked at my license the other day, and it had David G. D. Wysocki. Wouldn't be surprised if they didn't count it, because the signatures weren't identical. That's a part of the rule for the absentee ballot to count. Does that mean my vote didn't count? Maybe. I don't know. Those are the details that nobody wants to give a shit about. Times 600,000 for this district. It's not fucking easy. And nobody and somebody always shouts, and it's human. Liar, cheat, you didn't count them all. We would have won. Best effort. By a time frame, with a deadline, with maybe some provisions or exception, and then the review of those by Booker or whomever, 100, 1,000 that they validated, they weren't on the polling register, they voted anyway, they approve it or they don't approve it, and then you're done. Elections are over. You lost by 1, you lost by 100, you lost by 1,000, you lost by 100,000. Concede. That's the way the elections have to be. I'm gonna sue. I think I won. There's probably hidden votes. And the system breaks down because everybody has the right. The lawyers call it in. I don't believe you. Fuck, man. And it's a failure in ethics and morals. When trust is gone and everyone lies. Everyone lies. Because everybody wants to win. And that's a strong desire, but you still have to manage it, man. But when you invest $66 million in your campaign and you spend 22 hours a day stumping and campaigning with 5, 6, 7,000 hours on a cell phone, of which you have like 3, because you're talking to people, maybe it's hard to let that loss go. I don't know. It's tough. So they're both being challenged with recounts that are due in a day. I think they're due Thursday, a day, whatever. Got to figure out if who won, which is a nightmare. And then I read where Nicholas Cruz, the nut job that shot up Stoneman Douglas, actually voted from his prison cell. And the parents of a lot of the people killed, a lot of the children killed, tweeted or texted out or Snapchatted or Insta-snappily gram-dingled. The dams won. And it turned into a party thing. My daughter doesn't have the right to vote. She's dead. Oh. And on the one hand, you're like, fuck, oh. And you can't stop that person from saying that. Their kid's gone. But it doesn't make it right. And Nicholas Cruz getting the right to vote doesn't make it right. Some retard, it's such a shit word. Some retard in jail that shot up a school.
I'm gonna vote.
Give me a break. So that was weird. And we'll see how that comes out. Maybe they'll have a few more positions in the Senate or the House. And the Dems will be wherever they're at. And I don't know if we'll cover it. We'll have to see. The excitement continues. Midterm elections, they never go away. They never die. But, on that note, you know, it bled into all this stuff. The ethics and the morals and the rights of people and the rights of races and parties and religions and sexuality and the whole stimulus for a lot of this social uproar in the country nowadays. That bleeds over into financial uproar, right? Equality, distribution of income, you know, distribution of wealth, distribution or availability of jobs. And there's so many differing opinions and ways you can argue this stuff. Our unemployment's the lowest in history. The food stamp distributions are the lowest in history, or EBT cards or whatever. We have the fewest number of people on, at least these are things I'm hearing, on, you know, food stamps. And maybe it is because they're now on EBT cards. I don't know. You know, transition from one form to another form of dependency, but unemployment is the lowest, and the available jobs are insane. We have the most available jobs in like the history of our country right now. And a lot of them won't be filled. They'll have to be filled by specialists or experts, or right. But you know, you got snippets of good time, you got snippets of unrest, you got snippets of violence and strife and challenge. So it's pretty cool. These are exciting times, to say the least. And people are emotional and people are interested, and that's good. You know, as long as we find discourse and discussion. I've said this before, and something came out with Pat Tillman's wife, you know, because they keep bringing him up now, you know, with Veterans Day or whatever. Yay, thank you for the service, all. Proud to be veterans. And Tillman comes up, right? Because that dude had it all. Strange bird from California, went to Arizona, played great football in California, played great football in Arizona, and then enlisted. Went into the Rangers, and was killed by friendly fire after a nightmare of a hidden story by the military and the politicians and everybody. Ugh. Killed by his own company that split up into like multiple squads and went differing paths, and then he was killed by a saw gunner or somebody that saw what they thought were insurgents in the hills, and it was he and a couple of his counterparts that had been from the other section that had gone around the hill, come over the hill, and were coming down and shouting at them. And shot in the head. And his brother was in the same company, but he was coming up on the rear. And they said there was, you know, we've had an event. They were like, yeah, your brother got shot. What? I mean, they were close. His brother excelled in baseball, he excelled in football. They were both great athletes. They were, you know, two boys, sort of troubled, little rebel rousers, overachievers, very athletic, not horribly academic. But they were both sharp dudes. They both did well, and they both went through advanced training and served their country after somebody flew planes in. Yeah, so with all the controversy going on and all the ethical and moral debates and interest and awareness, and then the entire kneeling, non-kneeling, hashtag Black Lives Matter in the NFL, Tillman and his brother, who, you know, went off to war even though they were multi-million-dollar athletes. I think his brother got drafted also in Major League Baseball. I don't know. Can't remember. But Pat gets killed. And if you'd ever read the stories on him, even though he was a rebel rouser, he was a heady kid and then a young man. He'd read poetry, read about politics, studied pretty intensely when he went to ASU, when he was in Arizona. There's a lot of myth and legend intermingled with reality. He'd climb the lights at the fields and sit up at the top of the big field lights, the giant high-intensity lights. And, people would ask, "Where's Pat?" and you'd find him up there. And his wife came out recently and said she wanted people to stop using her husband's legacy to fit their agenda, which was pretty awesome. And she sent a statement to the Washington Post, I guess, a letter, and said, "I've watched from the background as professional athletes have taken a knee to draw attention to injustice and racial inequality in the United States. Pat was in the military. So many people want to attach a brand of blind allegiance to him and use him to argue that kneeling during the national anthem is unpatriotic. Pat was also against the Iraq War. So many others want to use him to argue against American involvement in overseas wars. His essence is bent to fit an agenda." And that's what people do. That's what the media does. And she's been pestered and peppered for his input and to either join one or the other side's message. And she said, "I think that patriotism is complex, like Pat himself. It's not blind or unquestioning, and it's a fool's errand to argue over who's allowed to claim sacrifice. Many of the kneeling athletes say they are protesting as American patriots who want the nation to be better than it is. When I look around at the vitriol aimed at them for expressing their beliefs and at the compulsion to simplify complicated issues to pit people on opposing sides, I want to kneel too. Because I believe we're at our best as Americans when we engage in constructive dialogue around our differences with the goal of understanding one another." Sort of, my message. Controversy, open decorum, open discussion. Those are the things that make us better. Sometimes, even if it's not constructively managed, right? If there's emotional or extreme interactions, and nobody wants anyone to get harmed, regardless of what anybody says, when all of the subjects calm down, for the most part, people don't want other people harmed or hurt. They don't want conflict and strife. They don't want battle. I think some subset may, but for the most part, people don't want that. They want peace, they want coexistence, they want agreement. And, we've got to continue to interface, to discuss, to think. That's what we did for 100 years, 200 years to become what we are. There's no reason to move away from that. Maybe just some civility, some ethics, some morals, maybe follow some rules, right? The fundamentals for open discourse, which I've stated in past discussions here. We've sort of lost that. The ability for an individual in a monologue or for multiple individuals in a discussion or a quorum format to share opinions, to express opposing opinions, to share facts, to share positions. That's hard, man. Most people can't do it. And it's unfortunate. That kind of constructive interaction, it breeds progress. It just does. If you've ever been in a major company or a minor company, everybody sits in a boardroom and you have discussions. And you have the wherewithal, even if you become emotional and you're very engaged and passionate about things, to calm back down, think over the subject matter, state, yep, I don't agree with this, but we've got a plan. Or I completely agree with this, then we got a plan. And proceed. Often to success, often to failure, sometimes to failure. So that was awesome to see, and it's not surprising that a dude like that associated with a woman, with another person that also seems to be very genuine and reflective and intelligent and thoughtful and knowledgeable and learned, and she said at the end, she explained that she doesn't know how Pat would have felt about race in the United States or kneeling during the national anthem, but he would have been willing to engage in respectful discourse no matter what he believed. Unfortunately, I think those are rare people. And I think that dude was a rare person. He had had a very uncommon set of characteristics and personality traits and behavioral traits and genetic traits that put him together like that. And he was probably a pretty extraordinary person. But, he's dead. He made some contributions, but he left us. So, I thought that was an interesting article. With all the topics of today, and then, the Veterans Day celebration. So, I wanted to mention that. I wanted to bring that up. And then move it from that into Bruno Mars. I'm not huge on music. I love all music. Our family likes a lot of music. I like rap. I like gangster rap. I like all of it. I think a lot of the R&B, the rap, I think a lot of it's creative. I love a lot of the melodies and beats. I like some of the skills. I like, some of the S. I like some of Eminem. I like, Jay-Z, New York with Alicia Keys. Dude, if you don't like that, and I'm from New York, if you don't like that song, and he bangs out some lines about where he's been all over, Tribeca, Brooklyn, all over the city. That song's awesome. That woman has a great voice. I like rock. Come on. Grew up listening to rock, Aerosmith and The Who and all the giant bands. Metallica. I've already told you guys. This open forum of discussion, monologue from me, would have a Metallica music line. If I could bypass the copyright infringements, because good God, I love Metallica. They're epic. And I like country. I like country western. Not as much. Blake Shelton. I like Ricky Skaggs, Waylon Jennings, some of the old junk. I like more of the, rockabilly or whatever. But all music. But I'm not a music head. I haven't gone to many concerts in a long, long time. But we all agreed here we would go see Bruno Mars. That dude is awesome. And I've seen some interviews on him where as a young man he had the ability to make choices, and these choices would be pivotal. And he made the choices where he was going to work hard, buckle down, dedicate, and turn his talent into the machine. And has he? That dude just keeps knocking them out, song after song. Like Bon Jovi, like Metallica, there's for all the music that you can listen to. How many artists really smash it out epically over a period of time? Not a lot. And I'm not saying you got a ton of one-hit wonders or whatever, but you got people for a period, like 2 years, 3 years, and then they're gone. They have addictions. They have family problems. They have mental problems. They have whatever. They don't want to do it anymore. They move on. Bruno Mars, he's given away 24,000 meals in Thanksgiving, for Thanksgiving in Hawaii, where his tour ends up. Dude, just epic. The dude gives back. And he's smart. And he's well spoken. And he's a musical genius, like little Stevie Wonder. But he can see, and he's got a giant entourage and a huge stage show, and I mean the machine, he keeps it moving, and he's in touch with the music, and he creates original stuff and fresh stuff, and he pulls new artists in. What's bad about Bruno Mars? And then you got like Pitbull, you know? He's not bad, good music, but not Bruno Mars. Whew. It's exciting to see that kid and see where he's going and what his music will be, because he's a monster. And that gives me joy, and it makes me excited, and I'm happy about that music. And I love his music, man. If you listen to Bruno Mars and your foot ain't tapping and you're not like, whoo, you're alien. Because that music would soothe any beast, savage, whatever. Love that dude. And I wanted to bring that up because I don't know if I'm going to do much music on any of these monologues. And music's critical. I love the musics. Ooh. But it's good once in a while to recognize these artists. I think they had the People's Choice Awards last night. You know, and whatever the People's Choice, I think it goes over all genre of entertainment. I don't know. I don't remember anymore, but you've got movie, you've got music, you've got, whatever the people choose. So you can have Nicki Minaj and Cardi B and Michael B. Jordan and, some of the bigger Hollywood stars. And then maybe some of the comedians. I don't know. But I guess Nicki Minaj won for something. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just music. I don't know. But she got up on stage and said she thanked whomever the designer was, and she wears that tight see-through crap, and she's a big hipped woman, big woman. She's an hourglass, and she thanked them and said, "Thank you for this outfit," whoever it was, the Italian designer. And she goes, "And I want to thank Michael B. Jordan for taking it off me later tonight." So, the woman's got some. She's got some character. She's got some stank. And it's cool to see too. I liked her. I liked her on The Voice or whatever she was on. She seems like she's a pretty good artist. She does a lot of that monologue or whatever in the rapping. I think she's got a good voice. She seems creative. There's a lot of that nowadays. It's good. It's good to see. But I don't frequent or watch any of the shows, the award shows or any of that stuff. For the most part, I'm not big on TV. Tracy will watch, E or Lifetime or Hallmark or whatever, and we'll watch A&E or whatever on occasion, right? The Real Housewives or this or that is on, and it is mildly entertaining, but God, there's a lot of it. With Andy Cohen, who seems to be the Ryan Seacrest of whatever that is, A&E, or whatever that channel is. He's on everything. That guy's turned into the nexus for all your reality TV relationship shows. Yeesh. Late Night with Andy Cohen. He seems fun and funny or whatever. So, another character. Good with people. But just a shout out to that. I want to do a little shout out to that and say, hey, music's awesome and I appreciate that. I don't know, I think the markets were horribly down today and I don't know if they've recovered. I think they may have recovered some, but I think one point in the morning today, early morning in the morning today, they were down 500 points. And it was weird because I thought the futures said they were going to be mixed. Maybe with some trade junk in China or some immigration junk or a little bit of fallout from these elections. 500 points isn't mixed. And when I looked at my stock list, everything was red. some of it big. So, don't know. I have to check that tonight. In a little while, or when we end this here web skedaddle. See where we're at. Other news. Wildfires in California, bad news. A lot of the stars have lost their homes. Bad. That's a bummer. And I mean, like, I think the Kardashians and some other folks were out trying to help emergency service and firefighters, giving them food. I think, like, Gerard Butler lost his house. I think a lot of them have lost their homes. I heard on NPR this morning that after the Borderline bar shooting, they made a location, an emergency response location, like an HQ, where family members could report for further information. And they did so. And they found out about the victims, or, you know, any type of information for that, like a little info command center. And that's been going on here. And then they had funeral processions right out there, and Thousand Lakes, right, for these 11 folks, 12 folks that are deceased. And I think one of them yesterday, day before, I don't know, today? I don't know, sometime this past week, was using the highway. And then, like, now the fires are raging out there, the highways are closed. So people that have been reporting and managing some of the devastating situation, and then they moved right into these wildfires. They've interviewed some of the reporters and the response folks and the, you know, management folks, the civil management folks, and they're like, it's been surreal out here, like a really strange period. And you have a mass shooting, then you have a mass fire, and right? And that's bad. And I always get mixed when it comes to these things. If you live in an area that has brush and whatnot around you, if you live in a potential hurricane area, you have to have shutters. You have to have wood. You have to have something that covers the windows so that the windows won't break, change the pressure inside your home, and then pop your roof off. And there's a possibility that none of that'll matter if it's 150 miles an hour, like that thing that blew through the Panhandle. It's going to devastate, you know, class 3 ranked or rated homes. 90, 100, 110 mile an hour able to withstand homes. It's going to blow those through. Right? And then I heard somewhere where, you know, maybe it was the Allstate ad with the guy from Deep Space Nine. No, it's not him, but he's the...
He's got the deep voice. Allstate.
We've had 25 storms of the century in the last, 3-5 years. Weather patterns are definitely aggressive. Global warming, we're clearly having impact on this planet. And, yeah. I mean, but if you're around fires and you've got foliage and trees around your house, I mean, they said something like Pepperdine was potentially going to burn. Sheesh, you got to keep those places maintained where you can control possible landslides or fires. And if you don't, shame on you. It's unfortunate. And then, so that's going on, and that's terrible. And then you got these two guys now. Some English dude that was in the Royal, military army or whatever, British Special Forces Army. He's going to try to walk or traverse the South Pole. And if you look at it, it's a weird traverse because the continent's big, right? And the pole's sort of down here. And they land on an ice shelf here and go to the pole and then go down here. It's not really traversing the entire pole, which I don't know if that'll ever be possible alone. because it's thousands of miles. This thing's like 1,000 miles where this guy's gonna walk, and he's a British ex-paramilitary guy. Some American dude's doing it. And they met, and they're hanging out in Chile before they go down there. And they both have really similar kits. They got these big sleds that they load up with food, and then they've got these skis that have this really slick bottom on it, so it's sort of like snowshoes. And, you know, they're gonna walk around. They're gonna walk around out there for, you know, a month to cover 1,000 miles. So it's pretty strange stuff. But there's two of them at the same time. They want to be the first one across. And I think they're going to start at the same time. They're going to be able to see each other. They won't be the same party. And whomever makes it first will say, I'm the first one to cross the Antarctic, the North Pole, the South Pole. So strange. But, you know, those are the topics for now. Out.